Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Open Up Dad. Open Up Dad is a show that was started because when I was becoming a father, I felt like I didn't really have a community to turn to, and I took it upon myself to try to create one for myself. So today's guests are Victoria and Gregory Gioia. Victoria is the co-founder of a brand called Perelel, which is doing some amazing stuff in the land of fertility and a lot of other things. Gregory, I don't know quite yet, but we're going to meet him right now. So here we go. Hello, guys.
Hi.
How's it going?
Going very well.
Yeah.
So why don't we start here? Gregory, Victoria, give us a little intro of who you are, what you do, etc. for those that don't know you.
Sure. So I can start. I am the co-founder of Perelel. We launched 9 months ago, and we have created a suite of vitamins and supplements to serve women throughout the entire motherhood journey, starting from the fertility conception through each individual trimester and then through the early years of motherhood. And we recently launched also a men's pack as the counterpart, very focused on how fertility is 50-50 and parenting is 50-50, supposedly.
I'm
Tease you on.
Yeah, that's a nice lead-in. Thank you. I'm Victoria's husband. I work for a company called Airtable, which is a sort of collaboration software company. We've been out in LA for 6 years. We've been married for just over that, or just under that, rather. And I think in the same boat as you, which is 0 to 100 when it comes to becoming a father. And so lessons learned and speed bumps hit for sure along the way. So cool to be here with you this morning.
Yes, I guess I should say that we also have 3 children that are 3 and under. So it's been an interesting couple of years over here.
Oh my God, I can't imagine 3. That's amazing.
I still cannot imagine 3 on a daily.
Can you guys talk a little bit about your journey into parenthood, and was that one of the reasons you started Perelel, or?
Very much so. I think it was our journey into parenthood and our pregnancies and our children and all of that, and feeling so unsupported by the products and even the resources and information that was out there. I think we have had a lot of ups and downs in our journey to parenthood. Our first pregnancy, we had a miscarriage with our first pregnancy, and I feel like it was more heartbreaking than we could have ever expected, because it was a handful of weeks, and it was a seed or poppy seed or whatever the size is at that point. But the second you find out, you think you're on your path to becoming a parent, and it was harder than we expected, and it felt at the time it wasn't talked about as much, and it was hard to tell people that you needed support because you hadn't really told people that you were pregnant. And I feel like it was actually really hard for both of us, and you were trying to support me through those next steps, but you were also going through it. I don't want to speak for you. And then, we were very fortunate to get pregnant closely thereafter with our son, Finn, and it's been an incredible ride since then.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just remember when you told your circle of girlfriends what had happened with the first pregnancy. I think they were, for the most part, like just starting to their own sort of motherhood journeys. And I know that even to this day, sort of years later, they thank you for that. And because some of them unfortunately have gone through the exact same thing, and it's way more common than I think maybe people realize or talk about. And then you sort of you talk to the doctors who sort of unfortunately deal with this on a daily basis, and you kind of, you're looking for support network. and the doctors are there to help you with the medical side of things, but oftentimes not the emotional side of things. And so I think it's a really difficult period that a ton more people go through than you perhaps realize until you're in it. And obviously, you know, we're incredibly lucky and fortunate to have three beautiful, crazy children. But it's definitely a journey. And I think everyone has their own sort of path. And if you talk to 10 people, you get 10 different stories about how they came to be, you know, become a parent.
Yeah. You know, I've had a couple friends, unfortunately, also go through that. And I've found that it's hard to know what to say to someone. And I think that is maybe societal. And Greg, I think this is probably more a question for you maybe, but I think especially in groups of men, what I found is when my friends who are, dads to be go through something like that, it's almost always the response from the guys is like, "Oh, bro, I'm sorry." And it's so crazy because I know for me personally, like being a father is like, and I say this word and I don't mean religious, but like it's a super spiritual thing. Like I'm very, very like connected, and it's not about like holding my daughter and being in front of her all the time. It's just like it's all I think about. It's like in your bones, and like at least I think so. And I can't imagine what it's like to have that and then gets taken away. But especially as a guy, did you feel as if you were supported at all? I mean, obviously, like you guys had each other, but like, was your group of friends, did you find that they struggled on how to even talk about that with you?
You know, honestly, I feel like I hope I'm not the exception, but I did feel for sure just a lot of support. I don't know that they knew what to say or had any true sense of empathy or could really put themselves in my shoes, because I think some of my groups of friends, you know, we were on the earlier side of having kids, and so I think that they just knew like this is something where they need support, and so we're just going to be there, and we're going to, honestly, in a world where everyone is texting and rarely calling, literally just like a phone call, I feel like it's like, wow, like someone has gone through the effort of picking up the phone and calling you and just saying, hey, how's everything going and how are you doing? And I think the other part of this is we had a miscarriage before our first, and then we had another one after we'd had children. And so we sort of have, been through this, like having a miscarriage before you have a child and feeling like you start to make plans. You're like, I'm going to be a dad. This is the first time. And then that gets taken away. And then when you do have a child and you realize just how sort of transformational and amazing that is, and then to have another miscarriage there, it's sort of like almost a different set of emotions, equally as challenging. And I think as you know, and maybe you talked about, our second daughter, our first daughter, our second child, was born with a cleft lip, and she had surgery when she was 2 weeks old. And I mean, I will never forget, I sent a picture of her to my group of friends, and like the outpouring of emotion and love and support there was just like unlike anything I think I could have ever dreamed of. And so, I do think there's this notion of like the macho man, dad who's sort of above it, I think is by and large like dissipating and sort of hopefully going away, and realizing that it's just a very emotional thing, and that, men, women, whatever, we all need support. We're all making it up as we go here. And so, like I said, hopefully I'm not the exception to the rule, but I did find that like my friends, they may not have known exactly what to say, but they just knew to pick up the phone and be there. And ultimately, I think that's more important than the perfect words.
And I think especially with Amy, who's our daughter, our second child, a lot of them had children by that point. And I think we found out that she was to be born with a cleft at our 20-week scan, and there was a lot of testing and figuring out, if there's anything else, and a lot of other things. And I think some of it was like we were navigating what were the next steps, and we didn't really share what was going on with anyone, probably like maybe a very small group of people, but we were so all consumed and overwhelmed and upset about figuring out, what does this mean? What else, all of those things. And I felt like when she was born and then we were dealing with surgeons and planning, those first 2 weeks. And I almost want to say that we didn't talk to anyone until the day she had her surgery. And you sent that message to your friends, and every single one of them, like, you send it to like two of these long I feel like everyone now has these group chats, and that's how you connect. Every single one of them called, and reached out, and they all had become, almost all of them had been fathers at that point, and kind of knew what it meant to like hand over your 2-week-old baby, and that fear and concern, that worry. And it was an amazing couple of days of support, or an ongoing support, but in the initial days it meant so much.
Yeah, my cell phone carrier probably picked up on just like a spike in calls and like tears being streamed through the audio of the phone. But no, I mean, I think it's I guess the later in life as well, you sort of stick with the friends who are the lifelong friends, and we're in our sort of mid-30s, and I think the friends that we are now friends with are just these really tremendously supportive people, and so hopefully, I hope that that's not the exception. I hope we're not just lucky ones on that front, but I do find that if you tell people something and you assume that they might not be able to react to it, again, they might not know exactly what you're going through, but they can probably tell by virtue of you telling them or reaching out that you need some support, you need some help. And I've been lucky, I think, to get that. I think we both have been very lucky to get that in return.
Wow, guys, first off, thank you so much for sharing all of that with me. That means a lot. And you guys are seriously heroes. That's amazing. Wow. So the next question, I guess let's jump into it a little bit more, was, my good friend actually this past week had to put his 5-week-old baby in the hospital. She's fine. She just had a really bad virus, not COVID. It was just some sort of respiratory virus, and she's 5 weeks old, and it's scary. And the first thing I did was I looked at my kid, and I was just like, I can't imagine that. And so I don't want to like have you guys harp on these hard times in your life too much, because you guys are really positive people in my eyes. But do you think, how do you think of a parent, like, being that you guys went through that, do you have any advice for new parents who are going through that? Because obviously everyone has their own individual journey. If God forbid you have to do that and get into a hospital with your newborn or whatever, but do you guys have any sort of, I don't know, advice you can hand over to the people who are going through that right now?
Well, first of all, I hope everything's okay, and I'm so sorry, and that's so scary. And I also can't imagine that in the world of COVID right now, having to take, your newborn into the hospital and have that fear. I don't think there's any good advice. I would say that we both look back on that day as the worst, and I hope it will continue to be. And I'm probably going to cry just thinking about it, and I don't mean to be. But I think it goes back to what we were saying before, is, reach out and share and lean on your support systems, because that, I think we hesitated so much to sharing. I think sometimes we just like didn't have an answer. We didn't know what was going on ourselves. And, you don't want to like be like, the one to, it's not complaining, but be like, oh, I need you, and asking for support, because everyone has so much going on, but it's okay. And, if it was the other way around, you would want to be supporting all of your friends. So I think just being really open and saying, this is what's going on. I need your support. And even if that's just like, be thinking of me, be thinking of my baby. I think that like helped us get through each and every day and take it one step at a time. But knowing that we had all these loved ones, even if it was just sending a weekly text, it meant a lot, and it really helped us feel supported. And so I think my biggest piece of advice would be, share early and reach out and just send a text that you're struggling, and your friends and your loved ones are going to want to be there for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would just say the same thing, and maybe slight tweak is just like ask for help. And I think people, if you need something done, just ask someone. And I think 9 times out of 10, the person's going to do it unless there's something keeping them from it. And so if you need like a ride to the doctor's office, or if you need someone to pick up like your dinner that night when you're coming home from the hospital, you're exhausted, like just, I think, a different side of like sharing is just like asking people, saying you need help right now. And we were lucky with Emmy because, a friend of mine from college, his wife's like basically father-in-law is a doctor in Mount Sinai, and so in the Children's CHLA network, and so we were able to find a doctor early just because we were talking about it with friends over dinner one night, and then so we were able to meet this doctor twice before the surgery and like get to connect with him, and he knew us and we felt like we knew him, as opposed to just like showing up to the hospital one day and saying, okay, I'm the guy who's gonna put your daughter under general anesthesia. And little things like, I told my boss very early, and she sent like food. I mean, like peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for the kids, and then like chicken for us. Like
she sent like the most, and like, and maybe this is like advice for people who are trying to support people going through that. She sent this like care package from Jones on Third, and she sent like all this food for the, because we had a toddler, and so she sent food for the toddler, food for us, like frozen casserole dishes that we could save, and it was amazing and like so helpful. It fed us for like 3 days, and then we had freezer food, and it was
like the emotional support and then like literal calorie support. It was just like all boxes covered. So yeah, I think everyone has their own struggle and their own journey. The only thing I could try to offer up to that is just like ask for help and ask often and early. So
I think you guys, that's amazing advice. I mean, my show's literally called Open Up Dad, so I totally agree. Let's get into some positive here, because you guys are Victoria, why did you start Perelel? And also congratulations, because I see you guys on Instagram. You guys are absolutely smoking it. I see so many people I know, storying it and posting it and being like, wow, this really works. And, I have friends who have been really struggling with getting pregnant. And obviously, I talked to Dr. Levine, and what an amazing human that man is. Wow. But why don't you talk to us a little bit about why you started it?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually all connected. So after Emmy was born, as the mom, I was floored. I couldn't help but question anything that maybe I could have done. And, I used all clean beauty products and non-toxic chemicals in our house, and I ate organic. But what we learned, because, I needed to do research to understand, and we also knew we wanted to have more children, we learned that the type of cleft that she had was often associated with folic acid deficiency. And that's, I think, what kind of tipped. So I had at the time been meeting with Alex, my now co-founder. Her first and our second, Emmy, are like 6 weeks apart. And we had started meeting on kind of what I mentioned in the beginning of, we'd gone through these ups and downs and heartbreaks and, amazing moments throughout this motherhood journey, but we just didn't really feel supported by any brand, whether it was because we couldn't find information, or it was just everything was very baby centric and not really focused on supporting this woman through all of the changes she was going through. And so Alex and I were chatting on that stuff. And then, we were dealing with everything with Emmy, and I was doing all of this research, and I came across this folic acid thing. And that's where I really felt totally failed by an industry. I learned that folic acid is not the same as folate. It's a synthetic kind of cheaper format, and it requires your body to methylate it in order to absorb it as folate. And it was one of those things where it was like, well, then why would any vitamin company who is serving pregnant women not use the best format of an ingredient. And that's, I think, where we started learning more and more about, all different ingredients, where format really matters, dosages really matter, timing really matters. Birth defects that are folate related all form usually within the first 9 weeks of a pregnancy, which I didn't know, Alex didn't know. We felt so failed by something that's supposed to protect you during this journey. And that's really what made us, come together and know that we really wanted to build a brand that had, better quality products, better thought out to serve this woman, where it's, breaking it apart for timing, thinking about exactly what you need during this journey, not like a one size fits all for this 10-year period, take, one pill. Bringing in a medical co-founder and this panel of doctors like Dr. Levine, and saying, what do they see in their patients and how can we better serve this woman, and create both products and content and resources to, never have another mom have the feeling that I did of like, what if there was something I could have done? And I won't ever have the answer to that. And I would never change an ounce of our perfect little girl. But that feeling really haunted me. And our mission is to, build a world with more healthy moms and more healthy babies.
Yeah, and I think you touched on something that I think about a lot, is there's so much guilt associated with parenting already. Like every day something happens where I'm like, that's totally my fault and I'm the worst dad ever. And I know you guys know what that feels like. It can be the dumbest thing, like like you didn't look quick enough and your kid accidentally put something in their mouth they shouldn't. It's that simple. And what I really do love about Perelel is like, you guys are really forming, in my opinion, like a culture surrounding like, it's mental health, it's science. And what I really do love is the 50-50 things you guys have launched, like parenting is 50-50. And my conversation with Dr. Levine was that much more interesting because he's like, he basically schooled me. He was like, not that I was against what he was saying, but he was like, that half of pregnancy and fertility issues are men, right? And I was like, no, I didn't know that at all. And he was like, right, because we live in a society that doesn't talk about that. And what you guys are doing is you're talking about it, and you're not making anyone feel bad about not knowing it. You're just like, hey, here's the facts. So like, let's change the conversation. And I think it's really hard to ignore any buddy and any brand that's doing anything like that, especially in the world we live in now. And it's really refreshing. So seriously, my hat is off to you. Like what an awesome thing you're doing.
Thank you so much. It's amazing to hear you say that. And I think that's when you go back to the guilt, like, we've had another baby in the last 9 months and we have 3 children, and this takes a lot of work. And it's, for things like that I balance the mom guilt of not being with my kids to be doing this.
Yeah, that's amazing. And was actually my next question. Sorry. You guys both work. You both have careers, and you both have 3 kids. So how do you how do you guys have that like work-life balance? Because that's something I struggle with so much. Like there are so many days of the week where I'm like, can there just be like 28 hours in a day? Like, oh my God, that'd be so helpful. Or if I could just like grow another arm when I needed it, amazing. Like that's where I'm at most of the time. And my baby's 9 months, so we're still kind of in the thick of it. And I'd be lying if I said I was good at routine, because I've never been good at routine. So I struggle with this a lot. So how do you guys do it?
I mean, it's just like survival. I don't think there's ever been a day in the last, 4 years where I've been like, yeah, I have got today under control. Like today went exactly as I planned. I set an agenda. We nailed it every step of the way. Like, I mean, honestly, I think it's just like every day is a bit of a gong show in a zoo. But I find that like when I'm a little short with them, Tori will be a little bit, step up on the patience front and vice versa. And I think it's honestly just like admitting defeat early and knowing you're just like every day is just like rolling a little bit of a boulder uphill if you're trying to control all the outcomes. But knowing that like that, I saw some, like, I think it was on Instagram or something the other day of, every morning at breakfast when my kids are screaming and yelling, the kitchen's a zoo, I'm like all stressed out. And then I think of in 10 years when like the kitchen's empty and it's just me eating here, how much I'll miss these moments. And so you have to like find a little bit of joy in the chaos. And just like, I'm like a very OCD person who I like things like tidy and neat. And I'm like, when the kids leave a mess, I'm like, like makes me twitch a little bit. And it's just sort of like trying to let go of a little bit of sense of that control and just like, everyone's safe, everyone's healthy, and you begin to put things, I'm sure every dad and every parent says this, your perspective changes like instantly. And so you begin to cherish the little smile, the little laugh, and just like that can hold you over. But I mean, the honest answer is at like 7:30 on any given day, it's like, holy cow, like just like as if you would run a marathon and then, done another one on the back of that. So I think it's survival and try to like keep a smile on your face as much as possible.
Yeah, I think the balance too of our kids, I don't think know what the word patience means correctly, because I'll always be like, mommy's running out of patience, or like daddy's running out of patience. And our oldest, who's like only 3.5, will be like, oh no, don't run out. Can you get more? And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way. So yeah, it's like trying to balance each other of knowing when the other one has had a hard day and is running out of his patience or her patience. We try to offset and stay calm, the other one stay calm, and absorb some of those late night giggles and kind of be like, all right, it is what it is. We're an hour past their bedtime and means we've lost an hour of our work time, but have to try to be grateful for those moments. But sometimes it's very difficult in that.
I'm more like you, Greg. Like I run so OCD. Like if there's anything on the dining room table, I'm like, can anyone clean in this house? Like anybody. And like, the other day my wife was like, hey babe, like what if you tried like not finishing the house and it doesn't look exactly how you want it and you just like went to sleep or like watch TV? And I was like, because then I would wake up and I'd have to get it done. And she was like, yeah, but like what if you just tried? And I was like, fine. And I did it and I went to sleep, and honestly I was a little bit pissed because I was just like, it's so annoying to wake up to a dirty house. Like who wants to do that? Because like OCD brain is going like red light, red light, red light. And I did it and I woke up and I like went downstairs and I just kind of like sighed and I was like, oh, like sometimes it's not the end of the world.
The world kept spinning. Yeah.
If all the toys aren't put away and the beds are all made and the dishes are done, it's like, it's just sometimes, maybe that's that like parent me time. It's like, Miles, like, what if you took a shower instead of cleaning up and then freaking out, But
yeah, when we like, when I feed the baby, I'm like, I like hate feeding her foods that'll get her messy, which is just like, it's just a poor outlook to have as a parent, that you can think you can feed an 8 or 9 month old breakfast and have her not get it all over her face. So I'm like, I only want to insert the spoon perfectly. It's just a failed outlook because it never ends well.
Oh yeah, it's never gonna end well. I've resulted to just taking all of her clothes off, just diaper and chair, because then I'm like, well, at least I could just throw you in the bath or something.
Yeah.
Were your guys' parents both, career parents, or were they like stay-at-home parents? Have there been any familiar things with your childhood, with your kids' childhood, or is it completely different?
My dad worked probably 24/7 when we were growing up, but like he reserved weekends, as much as he could for us, and like we always had dinner together as we got older, and like we could actually have dinner, and like and I think like my lessons from him was that he did a really good job of like really trying, regardless of like how hard he was working and like how stressed he was, of like carving out those times that kind of was like, I am with my family. And I was one of four, so there was a lot of us and a lot of chaos. And so I feel like some of my lessons from him was that like you have to set some of those boundaries, and make sure that like, you know, he woke up at 5 in the morning every day for 30 years so that he could, you know, make sure he was home for dinner, and had dinner with us every night at 7. And so making, you know, making those sacrifices. So not sacrifices, but, you know, adjusting to make sure that you always carve out that time has been a good kind of learning, and something that I work towards, and setting those boundaries and what I won't cave on.
Yeah. I think we both had at a certain point when we were, I think we're neither of us are the oldest, but with the oldest, I think both of our moms were working. And then I think by the time we rolled around on both sides, our moms became stay at home. But the same thing, like all I remember from my dad and my mom is like being there in the morning, being there at night. And just, I think in their own, I mean, I think our parents are about as different as two sets of parents could possibly be. I was given the, like, you know, the participation trophy, good job stickers every step of the way. And I think if she got a 98.5 on a test, it was like, why wasn't it 100? But like the same like focus on family, the same love for family, the same prioritization of like, I'm going to do whatever it takes to be there for the dinner and for the breakfast. And, you know, my brother played hockey. I rode in high school. So it was like, talk about like schlepping all around Canada and, you know, the greater Northeast to like drive us places at 5 in the morning. I remember that. It was like, I always felt like we were the priority and we were loved, even though I think our parents came at it from very different angles and very different personalities.
Wow. That's awesome. And then this is something as well that I've been thinking about a lot. So, at least in my experience, when we had a baby, my wife and I's relationship obviously changed a lot. You know, it wasn't about us anymore. It wasn't about, you know, waking up and doing whatever the hell I wanted to do or whatever the hell she wanted to do. And babies, you know, they put a real, you know, I hesitate to say strain, but a strain on a marriage, a strain on a relationship. It's, you know, sometimes you get in arguments because it's not even that you're mad at each other. It's just you're tired. Sometimes you get in arguments because it's one of you's OCD and the other one's not. Sometimes you know, like you guys just said so beautifully, like every single day is so different. And I'm looking at you two, and you guys have been together for a while now, and you have 3 kids. So how have you managed your marriage as well? Because it is so important too to have time for your marriage. And I think a lot of people don't realize this, but as much as, you know, having a child is a full-time job, so is being married, so is being with your partner, because it's also, you have to tend to it. It's a garden, you know, it can go any way you want, but if you don't water that, it's gonna, you know, die out. So how have you guys managed to, you know, keep your marriage as well?
I'm more eager than you are to hear the answer from her.
I mean, it is work, and I think how you said it is exactly right. I feel like our biggest blow up fights in the last year, I don't think either of us could really pinpoint what the fight was actually about, but we're both exhausted and stressed, and we're both actually super sensitive. And so we can, you know, some little things can happen and it spirals in each of our heads, and then it becomes a blow up fight. And I would say with COVID and having 3 small children and me starting a business and him having a very stressful job, I would say this last year has probably pushed our marriage a lot. And we've had some big blow up fights. And I think, you know, at the end of it, we always kind of come back. Well, one, we probably at some point start laughing about something, or the fact that we have no idea what we're fighting about. Some of it. But you know, I think we try to do a better job of like carving out time for each other and like time together. And we we used to have an au pair who would work a little bit on the weekends, and it would give us like, we would go for these like 2 hour long walks on a Saturday morning, and we would talk, and it would like be our time together. And I think carving out that time and like some windows where, we're not with the kids and we're not stressed about getting back to work, has been really important to us, and having those moments together and trying to remember that we do love each other.
How many times did she say blow up fights in the last?
I just am being honest,
no,
like,
I'm
not,
kidding.
I don't mean like that we have a blow up fight every week. It's like, but
I'm kidding. No, I mean, it's just like trying to keep your head on your shoulders. It's just like a joke in this day. It's like we've been at home for whatever, a year and a half. Our daughter, our middle daughter has lived half her life in quarantine. Our youngest has lived her entire life in quarantine. Tori launched a business the week after our youngest was born. The company I work for wound down, and so I effectively lost my job. I mean, it's just been like madness, and I think like to assume that wouldn't cause like stress and anxiety and like tensions at a different point would just be, I think, foolish. And so I think like obviously like carving out time and making sure that you can, even if it's like literally 30 minutes, just get a minute with each other and try to find some you time is like an obvious answer. But I think one thing, you tell me if it works, but it is like every step of the way, I just have like such gratitude and appreciation for what she does. Like, it's like these kids have schedules, they have their days are planned out. And like, in all honesty, I'm contributing very little to that. And, maybe I should be doing more, but I think what I try to do, even if it's like just saying something or writing a quick note or whatever, is just like try to show the gratitude for the lift that I feel like she's just burdens and takes on. And so, I think the obvious answer is find time, talk, be open. But I also think just trying to like step back and be like, holy cow, like you do 3.5 people's work in one person's body. And like, I can't even imagine trying to get through a 2 days without, well, I guess I'm gonna have to this week when she goes out of town, but trying to get through a couple days without her, I feel like would be a bit of a disaster. And so I think just like constantly stepping back and saying like, just you're grateful and like, there's at the foundation of it, you're both trying to make, these kids have this happy, amazing life. You're both trying to do well at work. It's just a lot, right? And so it's gonna take a toll at times for sure.
But sorry, I was on all that, he does make my coffee every morning, and he fills my water bottles every night.
So that's the secret. Water bottle. All you gotta do is fill a water bottle.
Okay, I fill up so many water bottles, and I've been filling them up for so long. And there are days where I am like, please, can you just fill up your water bottle? So I'm with you.
Big ones at night. I'm like, surely this is a mistake to drink 2 huge water bottles at night, because then you're gonna be going to the bathroom all night. I don't know.
I think what you guys said though is perfect, and I think hearing that from people is so helpful, because there's people like me who are newer parents. There's people who are literally about to become parents. There's people who, all of this is just such a mystery, and I don't think it's that normal to realize how much of a mystery it really is. Your partnership's a mystery, your kids are a mystery, everything's a mystery. Like, one kid might sleep well, the other one might not. One kid might want to sleep with you, the other kid might be like, don't even touch me. Like, you can't plan any of it. So if, hearing from people and just being like, hey, just, you got to find like that little sliver of time. Even me now, I'm like, oh, we should like really find more time for fake date night or a date night or something. But this is my last question. You guys have been amazing, but it's what I ask everyone at the end of the show. What's your advice for new parents to be brand new parents? What's your guys' advice? Because I think if anyone has great advice for parenting, it would be you guys. You have 3. You guys are seemingly doing a fantastic job.
Oh my God. I mean, I think like first and foremost, it's nobody has it figured out. And I feel like that's the scariest thing when like you bring your first child home from the hospital. You're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And you have this like feeling of like everyone else knows, like you got to support the baby's head, like they're pooping everywhere, like what is happening? And I feel like it's like just focus on getting through every day. Like nobody knows what they're doing. No one got sent home with a manual, and we're all figuring it out. And I think that would have been helpful because I felt, maybe it's like as a mom, like you're postpartum, you feel so overwhelmed, and it's like that guilt, and like you don't want to do the wrong thing, and well, I guess it's yet to be seen, but like you're not going to mess anything up in the beginning, and I guess reach out to your friends, ask for support, but nobody knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's an impossible question, but I think when I look at like my friends, and we're all in our 30s, and I look at my friends who they've come like all walks of life, all over the country. I mean, some all over the world, and everyone was raised a different way. Everyone had like a different set of norms and religion and you name it. But I think the people who we're lucky to call our friends, they universally sort of have parents who I feel like made them feel loved. And I think whether you had a 2.5-hour nap at 12:30 p.m. every single day from months 6 to 12 or whatever, if you had the organic formula, like whatever it is, like yes, do all those things and take all those steps. But like ultimately, I think it just comes down to like just showing love for your child, which is going to be innate, and it's like that is going to be there. But just like as long as that universal thread is there of like, it doesn't matter what the personality, what is different. Our 3 kids are 3 fundamentally different people, and they are like going to end up doing fundamentally different things, but we'll just like give them the same thread of just like complete love and support. And I think if your guiding principle is like, I want my kid to go to bed every night feeling loved, I feel like what happens before that point is sort of anyone's guess. And it's just like, try to go back to that point of like your kid smiles at night is all that really matters in my mind.
That was really beautifully put. I loved that. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing this. It honestly means the world to me. Seriously.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
very
us.
much.
Episode 2. So you guys, thank you again, because I'm still figuring this out too, on top of figuring out everything else. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day. I hope it goes somewhat as planned.
It will not.
All right, guys.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Bye.